Great Rising, Cleveland, Ohio, and the rest of the planet. Welcome to another edition of 360 Info Network brought to you by the Cleveland Observer. We are so happy to be here with you today, and we have a very exciting show with you. We have one of America's most preeminent, I'm going to call him a preeminent writer with us today because he's on his eighth book and he's not selling you things that won't edify your life. So we're excited to have him aboard today, and we'll introduce him momentarily. And we also have a couple of announcements to make. But before we do that, I'd like to introduce you to the creator and founder of 360 Info Network. It is Brother Hamtonio. Hamtonio?
Welcome, welcome. Thank you for tuning in. Again, we appreciate you. Baragani, Kujichagulia, it's Kwanzaa. So, hey, we got to get into the spirit. So, we're going to bring you good information. We welcome you on this journey of learning ourselves, learning who we are, what we are, and what we should be doing as people. That's what we need to talk about and some solutions. So, we welcome you again to this show. And we got you, we appreciate you staying this long with us, 20 plus years of doing it. So again, give yourself a hand for doing that and going on this journey with us. So we're always trying to bring you good information, things that you can use and need and edify your inner spirit. That's what we're talking about. I don't know if it's going to rain a little bit today or whatever, but we out here and we're going to talk a little bit about what Kwanzaa going on today. So if you want to get on out there.
All right. There's an event taking place at the East Cleveland Public Library right now as Dr. Hakeem Matubuti is doing a writer's workshop. He was brought here by Baba Paul Hill and his crew. They had a wonderful they had a wonderful gathering at the East Cleveland Public Library last night to observe Umoja. I just want to put you on game about another Kwanzaa observance. It is the commemoration and the celebration of Kuumba. It is co-sponsored by Larchmere Cultural Arts and Kings and Queens of Art, which is Gwen Gard's operation over there on East 34th between St. Clair and Superior. So we will be there on Wednesday between 3 and 6 p.m. There's going to be an art activity for the community. You won't want to miss out on this because it will be your opportunity to create art. So stop on by Wednesday. Kings and Queens of Art. It's at 1385 East 34th Street. Also wanted to let you know about an art opening that will happen at Larchmere Arts. It is the artist Mary Kay Thomas. She's going to be putting up some of her pieces in my gallery. So we're going to invite you to attend that. And that will be on the 3rd of January. And you can go to the Larchmere Arts Facebook page for more information on that. With that, we want to welcome to our airwaves and to YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, Brother M'bwebe Ishangi. He is an author of 8 books. And I'm telling you, I mean, these are books that you definitely want to have because they're going to bring you vital information. So welcome to 360 Info Network, Brother M'bwebe Ishangi. He's an author. He's a visual artist. He's a griot, a scribe of many frequencies. Those scriptures encapsulate his identity. He's a lover of knowledge, history, and culture. And for over 30 years, he's used these skills with the goal of resuscitating the awareness of our story while addressing those who conceal it from us. The work is intended to reclaim our greatness, forging a clearer path for future generations. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to 360 Info Network, Brother M'bwebe Ishangi.
Thanks, brothers.
Welcome, brother.
Happy to be here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Baragani.
So this is the second time for Brother M'bwebe, and he brought it with us last time. He had a phenomenal PowerPoint presentation, and he has some things that he will be sharing with us today, most likely in the second hour broadcast, so that those who aren't able to see them will be able to see them. But we'll see how that goes. Brother M'bwebe, I have to start, if you don't mind, by asking you to tell us the meaning of your name. And the reason that I'm doing this is because I watched and witnessed a show that you did with our dear brother Anthony Browder. I think it was on a radio station in Washington, D.C., and he mispronounced your name. And so you told him, with all due respect, you told him what your name meant, and it just caused me to think there has to be something significant about it. And the reason that I say this is because I just left the writers conference with Haki Matubuti, and he talked about the importance of changing the name. So talk to us about the meaning of your name, and then we'll get into the financial therapy, the books that you've written, and the Pan-Africanist thought that is circulating in your mental capacity.
Absolutely. Yeah, the name, it goes back to 2003, but really prior to that, I've been on this journey of wanting to, of rediscovering since the 1990s, early 1990s. Rest in peace to Rob Penny, who was a poet and professor at the University of Pittsburgh, who really sparked a lot in me in my earlier years, wanting to learn about I didn't even know about Garvey. He was the one that kind of put that into me. But the name change came about after in 91, hip hop pioneer KRS-One came to my school, University of Pittsburgh, and did a lecture. And I knew that his name is an acronym, and I'm a lover of acronyms, and that's what M'bwebe is, and I'll tell you in a sec. But KRS-One means knowledge reigns supreme over nearly everyone. I knew that. And when he did his lecture that night, it kind of changed and made who I am today. He actually has a pivotal point or pivotal part into the person that I am today. From that, I was reading later on in 2001, actually, I read one of his books called Ruminations. And in his book, he talked about his name and how he changed it to an acronym and so on. And I'm reading it. No, I'm sorry. Let me go back. I woke up from a dream in 2001 saying M'bwebe. And it came out of nowhere. It was just like, you wake up and you're still in REM or whatever. And this voice said, M'bwebe, don't forget this word. And I said, okay, whatever. I won't forget it. And I never forgot it. 3 years later, I'm reading Ruminations. And as I get to the paragraph where he breaks down his name and he wrote it out as I'm reading it, boom, it was a download, a spiritual download. M'bwebe, mind and body working equally, exudes blessings eternal. Meaning if I keep my mind, body, and spirit working together, the blessings will continue to come. So this is an affirmation, a daily affirmation. I have to keep all these things working together if I want blessings to continue to come. And at that point, that's when I knew that was my name. I didn't know I was going to be changing my name. I searched around a little bit here and there, but I wasn't adamant about, okay, it needs to get done now. But when that came, I understood that that was the birth of the person that I've become today. And I'm always an operator of divine timing. And that book triggered it. And since then, every day I try to keep my mind and body and spirit working together so that good things will continue to come my way.
Okay. Well, it's kind of appropriate that we have this conversation right now because today is the second day of Kwanzaa. And the word of the day is Kujichagulia.
Absolutely.
And Kujichagulia means self-determination. So you have taken it upon yourself to define yourself. And it seems as though it was a divine occurrence. It just didn't happen out of happenstance. It was for a reason. So that's a very powerful moment. Yeah. You have written 8 books. One of the most recent books was from railways to robots.
Railroads. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, from railroads to robots.
Mm-hmm.
And let's talk about that book first before we get into the follow-up book, which is a fictional book, but it relates to the material that you are so passionate about.
Yeah. So from railroads to robots is it's interesting as a continuum. When I go back and think about my first book, Analytical Cogitations, which it's a semi-biopic story of my reawakening, going back to the founding of my name and the whole KRS-One story I told you about. And then I wrote my second major book, or I would say I wrote a few in between there, but my second major book was Who is the Boule? And I've always studied global white dependency and those families that are responsible for the type of world that we live in. So we're talking about, the Rothschilds, the De Beers, the Rockefellers, Carnegies, etc. So I always was aware and familiar and continuing my studies. But Railroads to Robots came about as I started to finally embrace the notion that, technology, the AI revolution is here. Like, a lot of us are still in denial of it, but it's absolutely here. The movies that we saw, The Matrix and Terminator and all that stuff, in the 90s, we thought, hey, these are just films that, it's fantasy. But to see that it's happening now, uh, I give an example. I was in the airport in New York about 2 months ago, and I had a layover. And late at night, I saw this robot police. It's a dog, but it was folded up, and it was just rolling up and down the hallway, monitoring. And I've seen it on clips, but I had actually saw it firsthand. So I said, "Wow, this is really here. This is really happening." So writing Railroads to Robots made me do this comparison, and I've studied Rockefeller in depth, and intentionally, because I feel like he is the one that has really set up the system that we're operating on. And so when you find that Rockefeller, uh, not only did he was infamously known for saying that he wanted to create a nation of workers, not thinkers. So his whole idea was he wanted to control the masses. And in order to do that, you have to harness them. You have to put them through a system where you can deprogram them. That deprogramming system was the educational system. We're talking about the public school system. We're talking about the medical industry, where we're talking about now they conjured up the term of quackery and calling holistic practitioners fake doctors. And in fact, the first quackery was his father. He used to sell snake oil in Cleveland and in New York. But he was responsible for trying to basically gather the minds of the masses under his spell, making them believe that what I can provide you, and taking away self-determination, anti-Kujijakalia, and making you become dependent on his system. And so that was what made me realize that this is an oligarch that wants to control the world. And he had his conclave of folks. We had your uh, Cornelius Vanderbilt's, your uh, Andrew Carnegie's, and you also had J.P. Morgan. So you have these compadres of him that created these institutions, the systemic institutions that we have now accepted as the way of life. Um, and all this is for profit and control. When we think about his oil industry, just in particular, I just want to focus on this real quick, is that the oil industry had a toxin after you pulled out the oil. This was well before gas. It has a toxin. And at the time there were no regulations. So he would just, do away with the toxins by throwing it in the rivers or putting it in land. And it was basically causing issues with the water and with degrading the land. So they brought in regulations, and they were like, hey, we're gonna have to start fining you. You can't just be dumping things anywhere you want to. I think it was Cuyahoga River that caught on fire at one point. So what he did, instead of to evade from having to pay for regulation, he decided to monetize the toxins. So we now have the oil residue that was turned into monetized products. Mainly, you're talking about gasoline, kerosene, but you're also talking about plastics. And plastic today, we are surrounded by toxins. We're wearing plastic and don't even know it. We're touching plastic. We're breathing in. There's nanoplastics. These are forever chemicals. These are things that he knowingly understood that he could monopolize, and then also kind of create the system that allows folks to have a slow drip death, meaning you're going to go to these quackery doctors for solutions. They never offer solutions, right? If you get a subscription and you have to get it refilled, that means it's never going to cure you. A solution is, you get one subscription and that's it. Well, we have the pharmaceutical company, we have the educational system, we have the monetary system. These are three major things that circulate life and that we all have to, pretty much abide by to sustain ourselves. So by him controlling that allowed him to have the upper hand on the direction and his eugenic practices on the world. So I couple that with, and I know it's long, I couple that with our modern oligarchs. So now we have your Bill Gates, we have your Jeff Bezos, we have your Elon Musks, who are following suit we're trying to basically feel they know what's best for the world, and they have the financial gains to put these things in place. So that's what Railroads to Robots really talks about, is how we have the second industrial revolution oligarchs in your Carnegies and Rockefellers compared to your fourth industrial revolutionaries with you have your Bezos and your Elon Musk, etc. And that's where I want us to see the similarity, and then also understand that where can we create alternatives. We must become involved in this new technological revolution, not just as consumers, more so as developers, because we're going to need something to protect ourselves from the things that's coming. So that's it in a nutshell.
Okay.
I know it's a lot.
I want to ask a follow-up question based on what you just shared, and it just has to do with the way the world's financial systems are changing. Back when Rockefeller and Carnegie and Morgan and the others were in their heyday, there were very few people that had that type of wealth on the planet.
Right.
Now you have, I think it's somewhere around 3,000 billionaires on the planet. And you've got folks like Musk and Gates and others that are embarking on a mission to become trillionaires. But now we have this blockchain system, and we have opportunity for everyday people to get involved in the financial world on a decentralized basis. Do you think this paradigm shift is something that we can effectively take advantage of, so that we can perhaps push back on the massive wealth transfer that's taking place into the coffers of those sesquibillionaires and the ones who are making all the money?
There's an opportunity. There's always an opportunity. But I think our opportunity must also be presented from the perspective of not just being, well, I want to make money. I want to be a millionaire or a thousandaire, 100,000 or whatever you want to be. But as I mentioned, and I can't echo this enough, is the development. Because although we are making this transition into a digital currency, it's also being programmable. So there's going to be, as long as you are dependent on their resources, if you need their water, you need their electricity, you need their food, they can turn you away if they want to and say, hey, or they can turn what's most folks can't fathom, but it's happening and it's in development. It's where they can turn your money off. Once it becomes digital, it's programmable. They can put expiration dates, or they could put zones where your currency doesn't work in this zone. This is also with the formation of the 15-minute cities. So I say that, yes, we should get involved while we can to get amass what we can from it, but pull that amount into resources of development for our own. Bartering is obviously one of the most ancient ways, and probably the most communal ways that one can use to sustain themselves. So in addition to the technological piece that we need to be involved in, so must we reach back to Sankofa and via Sankofa and see ways that we were able to basically exist as a community by bartering services. My lettuce for your peppers, or etc. Because at the end of the day, the main thing that you need is clothing, water, and shelter. You can wear the same clothes every day if you need, but most importantly, you need clothing, water, and shelter. So if you're able to grow your own food, capture your own water, understand the abilities of using natural resources to create energy, then you have a better chance of not following into the plan that they have set up for us with the universal basic income and these programmable monies that will be coming soon. We're starting to see it now in the UK, where they are chipping folks, implanting chips for them to be part of the society. And if you saw the movie Total Recall, this is what we're seeing, is that there's going to be people that have, and there's going to be people that don't have. And those that don't have will be underground. And how are they going to survive? I wouldn't want to be in that situation, because that's when you're basically scavenging for whatever you can get.
That's interesting when you talk about the technology and the chipping that's happening in the UK right now. And I believe they were also doing that with the birth of babies in Kenya. And there was some pushback on that, but digital identification. Perhaps this is the perfect segue to discussion about your book, 2048. It's a rather dystopian, I guess it's related to 1984 from what I can recall, you said.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
Let me start by saying this, and I keep forgetting who said this quote, but it's so profound, and I just want to. I hope that it sits in your spirit, for those listening. The quote is: "Hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times." This is the cyclical evolution of a lesson unlearned. So, what we're seeing is that I actually we all understand we're in hard times right now. This is actually a great time to be alive, because in hard times we are going to find solutions. We are being forced to figure out what can we do next, because what's happening isn't working. So we're in a position to make those type of decisions about where do we want to go, and it's going to be against the grid. It's going to be causing ripples in the waves in the river. But
Mhm.
if we don't do these things,
Mhm.
we're going to be in peril. So as I was writing, from Railroads to Robots, um, and I do believe in source. I do believe in ancestral source. And as I was writing, especially the chapter on artificial intelligence in that book, and having a few conversations with my elders, I was initially calling AI African intelligence, but then one of the elders told me, that's a good one, but it's actually, what's even better, it's ancestral intelligence, and that predates the artificial. So as I started really massaging that into my spirit about what this is happening, all this technological advances, and my decision to embrace it, to get to know it, and then figure out what can I do to counter if necessary, or have it work in my benefit or for our benefit as a people. I'm looking at the strengths and weaknesses. Some people get on Chat GPT just to talk about nonsense. I get on Chat GPT most times to figure out its weaknesses, you know. So, and then while it can at this to date, it may reveal those things. Now it's going to get smarter, and it may start hiding some things as it gets more intelligent. But I understood that this is a window for us to understand what is happening. So as I was writing, again, Railroads to Robots, um, I received this download, man. It was a massive download that conjured me to write 2048 in 3 days. And it's something different. I've always written nonfiction. I always wanted to bring historical data into our story and speak about it to uplift our people holistically and diasporically. But this information, I understand, is sometimes hard to swallow. And when you bring historical facts, um, you lose an audience that wants to do something with the information, because a lot of us, they don't want to take that red pill, right? They just want to, I know that's a lot of information, I can't deal with it right now. There's a reason, they just make an excuse, whatever reason, respect due, but they don't want to involve themselves into this type of things, even though they see it coming. So I figured I need to find another way to get this information out to people, just to entertain the thought. And that's when it hit me that I could write a fiction book. I can bring some fantasy, and maybe it's a little bit more palatable, because it's easy to weave history into something where there's a hero and there's a villain. And that's what 2048 is. 2048, um, is sovereignty in the age of sovereignty. I mean, in the digital age, is this book is really talking about when George Orwell in 1949, 88, I'm sorry, 1949, he revealed a book called 1948, but he changed the date to 1984, mainly because if you think about the 1940s and 50s, conspiracies against governments wasn't a big thing. So sorry. So many people weren't speaking against the government, and in fact, if it was, it's very few people. And so if you were talking about big brother and shadow governments and being surveyed and all that kind of stuff, most people, it would probably cause a serious uproar that I don't think the government was really prepared to deal with. So what I found is that he changed the date to 1984, which post dates it. And like with anything else, that the habit of the way humanity has been in this country is that if you can get things to be post dated, people will take it less seriously, and they won't address it. They'll give it to the next generation to handle. So this is what's happening with 1984, is that although it was talking about what was really happening in 1948, you had folks that figured it's not going to touch my generation. I'll let them deal with it. The next generations that come through. And because you don't deal with it, it compounds. So now 1984, we're seeing all these things that could have been probably brought to a halt or a detour, at least to some degree, had they dealt with it back then. So he changed it in 1984. When I thought about the title of this book, 2048, I wanted to stay consistent with the original title of which was 1948 by George Orwell. Only this time, 2048 talks about the merge of Big Brother with AI. So it's a story about a brother from Brooklyn who has a spiritual connection with another brother from Kigali in Rwanda, and how they diasporically connect with other folks that are still holding on to our African principles in a sovereign world where we have Big Brother on high. He is controlling everything. We are all most of the folks have falling into the systemic plan of abide and comply, and you have these uh, few renegades that decide to use ancestral intelligence to fight the artificial intelligence. And I think it's a page turn. I think it's a must read. And I think it also introduces us to the fact that we should become aware of what artificial intelligence is capable of and embrace it and even become uh, developers. We need programmers, we need writers, we need people that we need art, we need those vanguards of our story, because as Anthony Browder speaks about in his poem Transition 13, if we don't protect our story, we're going to forget, and it's going to be usurped by someone else who's going to sell it back to us in the form of white bread, white rice, and white folk. And we're going to forget that we've forgotten. And that's even worse. When you forget that you've forgotten your story, then it's very hard to find yourself back. And I think we have found ourselves back in this stage right now, where we are in this stage where this hard times are going to create strong men and women.
All right. You're listening to 360 Info Network right here on AM 1490 WERE. Our guest is M'bwebe Ishangi. He's written two phenomenal books that we are sharing with you today. Before we step away, I just want to ask Brother Hamtonio, any questions or observations based on what Brother M'bwebe has shared with us thus far?
Oh well, we're about to go into a break, but basically that you definitely see that coming. What he's talking about, and we have to be in the right mindset as people. The Creator always gave you a choice on everything, and it depends on what you tend to use it for. If you use it for good or use it for evil. Now, if he's saying taking the technology that is coming upon us, and use it to our advantage. You want to use it to things to where it helps the planet and it helps things around you, not destroy and manipulate to a degree to where it causes issue to the whole cycle of life and things of that nature. That's what we're dealing with right now. Technology, we had it back in the Egyptian days. We had technology, but it's based on, you got to base that on the mindset of the individual on what they're going to use the technology for. Right now, we got technology and had technology for different forms of energy that is more comparable to the planet and more comparable to the environment. But the people select not to use that. They let money, that old evil thing called money, rule over longevity, and things of that nature. So as far as longevity of the people and the planet. So it's all about the mindset. So and backing up a little bit of what he said, that change, like some Dr. Ames Wilson say, change the things that you desire, and the man loses power over you. So we are caught up in his things and his way of life, and he's going to continue to have power over you because you're caught up in it. So I'm listening to what my brother's saying. Just develop your own way of doing some things that work for you as a people.
All right. We're going to step away for just a few moments to hear from our title sponsor, the Cleveland Observer, and we will be right back in a few moments with more of 360 Info Network. Stay with us.
Cleveland has stories worth telling and voices that deserve to be heard. That's why the Cleveland Observer is proud to sponsor 360 Info Network with Vince Robinson and Antonio on AM 1490 WERE, where truth, culture, and conversation come together. Each week, host Vince Robinson and Antonio open the door to powerful discussions, from the arts and community history to the issues shaping our neighborhoods today. And the Cleveland Observer is right there with them, shining a light on the people and movements building a stronger Cleveland. Tune in to 360 Info Network and visit cleobserver.com to read, watch, and share more stories that inform, inspire, and unite our community. Because together, we are Cleveland's voice.
Thanks again for joining us right here on 360 Info Network, AM 1490 WERE. Our guest again is Brother M'bwebe Ishangi. He's written some masterful books. It's really amazing, brother. You wrote that book in 3 days. I got to check it out. I definitely had to check that out. I recently read a book that was an autobiography of a brother here in Cleveland by the name of J. Everett Pruitt, who has written several books, but all of his books compared to yours were fiction. And then he wrote this nonfiction book. So he did the reverse of what you did. But I read his book almost in 1 day. It was like I read all of it in 1 day, and then I just finished the last chapter the next day. But I'm always excited to read books by people that I know. And, you know, when I read fictional books by people that I know, I typically look to find them in the book. So I'm going to be reading this book to see if I can find M'bwebe Ishangi.
You're going to see it. Yeah. I tried it outside of not using my name. I had to embed myself somewhere in there. But yeah, it's an experience. It's a freeing. It's a little bit more, you know, it's a little bit more labor to it, you know, because you have to be more creative. You got to create characters and all that kind of stuff. And I'm learning that. But it's also a little bit more, actually, it's fun. It's fun because you really get to use your imagination. And I find that imagination is really the sum of everything that we see. Everything we see here is from some imagination. This microphone, these houses, these homes, these podcasts, everything was first thought in the mind. So if I can conjure that same type of energy when speaking about a story, and then also playing out how we go about defeating it, or, you know, resolving it, I'm conjuring up something that I hope is prophetic. I hope that we're able to bring this into fruition.
Okay.
Yeah.
As we have this conversation, I just want to remind our listeners that you can view our broadcast on YouTube. Just go to The Journey with Antonio and you can see it there. You can also go to my YouTube channel. You can view us on the 360 Info Network Facebook page, and you can also go to my LinkedIn page. So a lot of different places that you can go to witness a 360 Info Network. And Brother M'bwebe, you have a podcast as well, do you not?
Yes, I do. It's called WTF Podcast Show. And WTF doesn't mean what the bleep, it means Ways to Freedom.
Okay. So people can just go to your YouTube channel and see that then?
Yes, WTF Radio. WTF Podcast Show. Yes, on YouTube.
Okay.
Or you can find it in M'bwebe Ishangi on any of the social media handles.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just getting back to 2048, the dystopian aspect of it, because I'm sure there is that if you're talking about AI and you're talking about digital identification in the 15-minute cities, these are things that the masses are not completely plugged into in terms of understanding what they're all about, and how, you know, you talked about Rockefeller and the systems of control that he implemented, and how those things are really just what's coming into fruition now. I mean, think about 1984, Big Brother, Double Talk Speak, all those things. And it's really interesting because he was kind of doing a retrospective, you know, but then it was so prophetic. So I just want folks to know what those so-called powers that be have planned for us: the World Economic Forum, the Council for Foreign Relations, all those you know, multiple letter organizations that sit under the Bank for International Settlements. And decide, how we're going to live our lives, what are we looking at in terms of a future? Two separate systems, one of people who are jabbed and folks who aren't jabbed, or folks who decide to live off the grid and those who are completely plugged into central bank digital currencies and surveillance and monitoring and programming of currencies. What are you seeing down the road?
I'm seeing all the above, and before I give that my take on that, I want to speak about the genesis of it. The genesis coming from, this is all about, I think one of the biggest businesses in the world is monitoring and dictating human behavior. So this really is about putting out the idea that there isn't enough. And here's the thing: when there's no need for greed, when there's enough, human behavior can be changed. When everyone has what they need, people are a lot more friendly, right? But if you have, like what these oligarchs have done, has give the illusion that there isn't enough. There isn't enough food. There aren't enough jobs. There aren't, there's something that is lack of. Then it puts you in a type of mindset where you're a scavenger and you're going to hunt like wolves. Like a pack of wolves will hunt together to kill, to eat. But then when it comes time to eat, they'll fight themselves before they eat. So it's a mentality that they have been in control of making you think that there isn't enough. And to be honest, in their mechanisms and their pieces that they put together, it is consistent. For example, we think about the labor force. In 2023, there were roughly 911,000 jobs that were created. Okay. But at the same time that year, there were there was about 3 million high school graduates and 2 million collegiate graduates. So that's 5 million people coming out of high school and college. And definitely most of the collegiate students and probably a large percentage of the high school students are looking for work. But there's only 900,000 jobs available. So when you do the math, that means that 1 in nearly 6 people are going to land a job. And we're not even counting people that are already in the labor force that need a second job or got laid off. So we're talking about annually, this world is not creating enough jobs. And so therefore you have the mindset of the scarcity, you have the fear, you have the greed, you have, the anti-communal approach about working with each other. And so when I look at this was a 100-year plan that Rockefeller put in place. And it has worked to his benefit. I mean, if you think about it now, I was speaking the other day and I was just talking about how even to this day, they're having meetings about 50 years from now, what's going to be going on, because they are futurologists and they have the luxury of doing that because they own their time. If you own your time, then you can pretty much project how you live your life. But we're tethered to the 9 to 5, the biweekly checks. And so because of that, we're spending our 40 plus hours a week working and coming home too tired to do anything else, especially investing in ourselves. So we get caught up into that cyclical psychosis of the rat race and trying to understand why we haven't lived yet. We have a midlife crisis. So again, it's systemic because so many of us are going through it. If it was 1 or 2 people, then you could say, okay, that's authentic. Maybe it's just that person. This is the systemic design of what's been happening. And now that when I wrote my book, A Pot to Piss and Intergenerational Wealth Planning for Black folk, it made me understand the systemic design. So now, again, I'm panning out and seeing, okay, what was Rockefeller thinking and how did he put this thing in place? So I use that same mindset to where do I see ourselves going in the future? The very near future, there's going to be rebellion because there's still a lot of us still here, the old school, right? We know what life was prior to that. However, they understand that we're going to die off. So they're focusing on the youth. They're programming the youth. So this is why you find implants. Now it just hit me. Body implants for women is a precursor to digital implants. Women are getting Black women are getting BBLs and they're getting breast augmentations. But what's next is going to be putting a phone in your system. It's going to be neuroplants. They're putting things in your brain. They're preparing us to merge. And this is what Elon Musk said, that if we're going to be relevant, we must become hybrids, part robotic and human, to exist in this future world. Now, you and I know, we would be like, oh, no, we're not doing that. We didn't take the jab. We're not doing these type of things. We're not putting anything that is synthetically into our bodies, because we know it's not natural and the body will reject it. But if you get the youth to think it's cool, the UK had this, even 10 years ago, they had this ad they were running about a girl that had a phone. She put implants in her fingertips, and she had to keep her phone with her because they were using 5G, but she would make a phone call with her fingers. And so I looked at it. I did a study analysis because I teach STEM, and I was teaching STEM to both adults and youth. And I played the video for both adults and youth. And of course, the youth are cringing. I mean, the adults are cringing like, we would never do that. But the youth are like, whoa, that's cool. So we're seeing how they understand, if we go for the youth, they will grow up to be elders and accept this way of life. And they will forget the ways of their elders. This is the forgetting of the forgotten. So we are understanding that their focus is on not us, and they'll wait us out. And it won't be easy, this transition. There will be some rebellion, but as they create more opposition, we're seeing now that I just saw last night that in China, they created a system. They have a product where you can rent robots now. So Elon Musk is wanting to put out 100,000 of his robots next year, and then 1 million the following. So as robots become to outnumber the masses, then we're going to see this transition of power. And for those that get down, that don't get down, you're going to have to find some place or some other way. Now, this is where I say that we need to be in a place where we know how to combat this thing. We can't throw rocks at a robot and think we're going to win. We need to understand programming. We need to understand the effects of magnets and water as some of the Achilles to defeating robotics. But these are the conversations that we need to have. These are the conclaves that we should be creating. And this is not something that needs to necessarily be televised. But at the same time, how do you get the word out to the masses? We need to be having these conversations, y'all.
I want to jump in and ask, just put it out there. I don't know if folks have seen it before, but go to YouTube and look up a talk or interview done with Dr. Charles Morgan. He did this like in the mid to 2015 or something. He was talking about the upcoming technology and the things that is in front of us, and probably already here now, because he was talking in 2015. And to make sure you got the right one, he's talking to some West Point students, older students there, and he's giving a lecture like in a classroom college setting. And go and check that out. Definitely get to the second half of it. He talks about mind controlling mechanics, and doing things with your mind, how you can control a movable arm and other mechanisms across the country and stuff like that. But he then get into what we've seen in Men in Black, being able to erase your memory and implant different things into your head to where you think those events actually took place. And then it goes in, even further in saying that they can download different instructions and talents into the person, like a medical procedure that you have no experience at all. It's stuff that you've seen on TV. So I think that would give us a little a nudge and seeing the urgency of what's going on and where this technology is going. Dr. Charles Morgan, check that video out. And again, it's all based on what you decide to do with this technology, but it gives you a snapshot on what this man is doing. So I think he's hell bent on merging, human consciousness to robot. This cyborg, he is hell bent on that. And here's my theory on this. This is my theory on this. I believe he's looking at those things based on his dwindling population situation, to keep things going. He knows this, and it's inevitable that he's going to be overtaken far as the numbers is concerned. Because if you look at all the science fiction movies and things like that, he's always trying to cheat death. He's trying to cheat death. He's not willing to give over this baton to what's inevitable. So he's trying to stay here. So he's trying to do everything that he can to manufacture it. And the last point I would make, our good brother Wayne Chandler had talked about when his perfection of cloning way back in 1984 or in the mid 1980s. So the question is, where is he now with that technology 30 plus years ago?
Yeah.
So again, we have to come up with something to counteract this, and it's gonna be us to see how we gonna survive it. I'm looking at it, it's gonna take the creator, because we've been asleep for so long, and he's almost pretty much checkmate this, to me, and then I think it's gonna come from the creator.
M'bwebe, you brought up the robots in China. They already have robots on pre-order here in America. They cost $20,000, but you can also rent them. So what's happening in China is coming to America. It's not really, and so you can program the robot to do certain things, like if you want the robot to wash the dishes or vacuum the carpet or even cook your meal, you can program the robots to do that. One of the reasons that that's a little bit disconcerting is because you mentioned the fact that they're eliminating jobs, So if they're eliminating all these jobs and they're looking to change education, and his idea of education is planting that chip in people's brains and sitting them in front of a computer monitor, or they don't need an educational program or process if they got a direct link to your brain and they can feed you whatever information they want to feed you. So it just seems as though I don't know. Sometimes I think about the dichotomy of wanting to eliminate population, but at the same time extend life. To me, those
Who?
So what are you planning to do? Destroy everybody and then make it possible for you to live forever so you can enjoy the earth that you destroyed? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
With Georgia Guidestones, let's go back to the Georgia Guidestones.
Yeah.
They want to decrease the population to 500 million or something, the world. You know what I'm saying? So the question again is, sorry to jump in like that, but the question is that, again, what we're going to do with all the extra people now? That is the question, and that's where we get into, and that's what we need to understand. What's going to happen and we have to read between the lines on where and what direction that we're going.
If I could add to, the thing that I think that we should try to pull from them, there's very few things I want to mimic, right, from them, right?
Yeah.
But if it's one thing that I would say that we should try to pull from them is their notion of boundless creativity. They both want to not leave here or be here as long as they can, or longer than everybody else, but they also want to leave here. They're trying to go to other planets, right? And they are committed. And when I say they, it's obviously a small percentage of them, and they're willing to forego even the rest of themselves. It isn't just let's keep Black people down. They're going to leave their own kind behind too. But it's those folks that, this is the thing about where I pointed back to ourselves, because when you point a finger, you got three pointing back at you, is that we are forgetting that we predate them, one. We created them, two. And they have put us under a spell that we're waking up from, where we are aware of our historical greatness, but we are still stuck in the past. We have not taken on the challenge of resuscitating that past into present time. And I think, as Brother Antonio said, that, it's going to take the creator to do this. The creator is inside of us. It isn't going to be some mystery swoop down. Hey, here's a bag and you can do what you need to do with it. No, it's going to be us understanding that, hey, excuse my language, but I stand up and use the bathroom like you do. You're a human, where you're part of a, you're a creation of a human, with the ability to think, the ability to use time while you're here to do something with that time. Just as, and I could do this very same thing. So if we start to see ourselves as that, then we will become that greatness that we are.
Sure.
And we will, and it's, I'm convinced, coupled with that, put on your channel the energy of Harriet Tubman, and knowing that we can't help everyone of ours. Everyone don't want help. And it only takes a few to create a template, and then the masses will come. Now, if that's not the end goal for me, is to get the masses to come, really, we need to be a little bit more selfish. We need to be more selfish about our individual and close circles. What can I do? Because if we keep looking at this from, we're waiting for everyone else to get down, it's never going to happen. So what can I as an individual do? Can I learn about robotics? Can I learn about the pros and cons of it, obviously? Can I learn about water capturing? Can I do both things? How can I live off-grid, hybrid, off the municipal? How can I create shelter? How can I create defense? Do I know how to make bullets? There's a laundry list of things that we could do that we may need to be able to sustain ourselves. And even if we're not able to achieve all those things, just passing that down to the next generation can probably ensure that we'll be here a little longer to fight. So that's my thought is we need to be a little bit more like, we need to borrow some things from them. They feel they're invincible and they answer to no one. If we take that same type of mentality, the only thing that we have more so is we have empathy and a love for the planet. Is if we couple that with that, then we would be able to be viable contenders. And if more so than anything, preservers, it's our responsibility to make it easier for the next generations coming after us.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'm thinking about consciousness. It's about consciousness. I think you can. I mean, we've been victims of this psychological brainwashing. Yeah. You alluded to being the original. So being the original, you capable of surpassing whatever it is that he's done. If we're talking about 9 genomes and compared to 6 genomes, and 9 genomes bring forth more intelligence, so definitely you could figure this thing out and have the knowledge of the pyramids and things of that nature, and how we relate to that, to the cosmos and the whole shebang, if you understood who you were and who you are and what you have been. So that's the psychological game that he has played on us for the longest, because he don't want you to wake up and find out who you are, because you'll take whatever the situation is going on right now and take it to another level.
Yeah.
And here's the low hanging fruit. I'm sorry, just want to say this real quick. Here's the low hanging fruit is we need to move beyond speaking about how great we were. We need to move beyond giving just like, and this is nothing against you, brother, because I say it too. Like, we had the knowledge of Kemet. Okay, well, tell me some of it. We need to have, we are notoriously great for coming together. We always getting together for cookout, for holidays, but we never talk about getting together. We need to have these conversations. These high level conversations can be partitioned. If you're going to have a Super Bowl party, take 30 minutes in the middle of the game. I don't care, because if you do it before, people are going to show up later, right? And if you do it after the game, people leaving. In the middle of the game, take 30 minutes to talk about finances and how we can pull our finances together to free our time. In addition to that, we can talk about technological. Okay, well, who's interested in programming? How can we get these kids to learn about programming? I want to know about programming. Do you know about like we have these intentional conversations? Okay, Kwanzaa. We're in the Kwanzaa season. The Nguzo Saba. We celebrate the Nguzo Saba for only 7 days. No, those should be celebrated 365 days. Each principle can be applied every day throughout the year. So if we are not intentional as folks that know this life, if we're not out speaking about it in detail, then we're leaving up the YouTube real, they're not real, R-E-A-L, but R-E-E-L scholars that are going to give you tidbits of information that cite no sources, and they're going to think that they know enough to do what they need to do in the world. It's our responsibility as writers, as readers, as bestowers of our story and our culture, to go beyond wearing it, to go beyond paraphrasing, but to actually hold someone's attention for 10, 15 minutes, work on their attention deficit orders, and bring us back into the realness of who we are and where are we going if we don't have this. Because as John Henry Clark said, Pan-Africanism, well, I would say African-centered, but Pan-Africanism or perish. We need to understand the importance of Black folk understanding the importance of knowing who we are, waking up from that, and understanding the oppositional plan that's in front of us. If we don't do that, we're going to forget again.
Well, you know, I want to add to that. You can have that half-hour conversation, or you can turn the game off and have a meaningful 3-hour conversation.
For sure.
And I think at the end of 3 hours, you'll be in a better position than you were had you just sat there and watched those guys on the field beat up on each other.
For sure.
You know, the media and all the distractions and diversions that they have out there, all they really do is reinforce that mindset of scarcity that you talked about at the top of the show, you know, and we have to understand that in addition to everything else, we are a resource. We are the wealth. We are the ancestral memory that lives within our DNA. So I think that's what we really have to do to move things forward. And I agree wholeheartedly. And we say that on 360 Info Network all the time. You know, the Nguzo Saba should be something that is 365, 24/7, all the time. Don't just do it, you know, for a week, you know, show up in your Badakari, and then the rest of the year, you just abandon your culture.
Right.
You know, it's got to be.
Hey, Vince, and I'm saying, I thought about it last week, and going forward into 2026, which is not the real, you know, but anyway, going into 2026, let's, you know, each month, let's give it one of those principles, and we preach that throughout that particular month, you know, getting our, you know, listening audience to participate into whatever, you know, principle that we're working on.
Yeah. I like what you said, M'bwebe, about the real scholars, the REEL scholars, because that's one of my big frustrations. You know, they drop a little bit, but they don't give you any references. They don't tell you how to get to the whole thing, and you just got a bit of it, and you want to dive more into it, but it's not there. I think as purveyors of information, we have to be more responsible.
Yes.
You know, just because you have a cell phone, that does not mean that you're a photographer. It just means that you have a tool that the professionals use when they want to project an image. We're winding down on our terrestrial broadcast. We have just a few more moments left. So we just want to remind you that you can check us out on YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn as well. Go to The Journey with Hamtonio and check out his YouTube channel. When you go there, like, comment, and subscribe. We'd also like to give a big ups to our engineer, Tone Harley, who was in the studio holding it down for us and making it possible for us to have this broadcast. Before we let you go, as always, we just want to remind you to know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, and make today your absolute best day. Thanks for joining us on 360 Info Network, brought to you by the Cleveland Observer. You can join us on YouTube right now at straight up noon, right here on AM 1490 WERE. Thanks for joining us. Know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, and peace.
Peace.
All right, it is noon right here on 360 Info Network. We are live on YouTube, we are live on Facebook, and we are live on LinkedIn. Our guest is M'bwebe Ishangi, and he describes himself as a scribe, a griot, a visual artist, an author. He's a storyteller, and he's one very serious brother. Wrote that book in 3 days. I'm impressed.
Me too, bro. I don't know how. I don't know how it happened. It just happened.
Did you sleep, man? Did you sleep?
Man, sometimes when you tap in, time doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know, I slept afterwards, I guess. I don't remember.
Yeah. So talk to us about this book. I'm really intrigued by it because I understand the value of fiction. Talk to us about the book. Who's involved in it, and what's the storyline?
So the storyline is we're in the year 2048, and whatever transition has already happened where, robotics and Big Brother, I call him BB48 for short, for Big Brother 2048, is the villain. And he's already put in place, we're under surveillance, neuroplants are already happening, but there are still folks that have not given in to, and so they're on the underground. And these are folks that happen to be still tethered to our African origins. And so there's a character, his name is Masai Sankara, and he has these visions. He's a young teenager. Well, I'm sorry, he's a young adult. He's about 18, 19. And he's having these visions, and these thoughts are coming to his mind, and about never forgetting who you are, and you need to come home to Kigali. And he's like, man, I'm from Brooklyn. I don't know nothing about Kigali. But come to find out that this is a frequency that has been permeating. And this is something, again, I pull in personal experiences, but I also pull in metaphysical, teachings and thoughts and theories that I've always believed that it's interesting how we can believe in the cloud and we can believe in Wi-Fi, but you can't see it. But we don't believe in frequencies and spirits. That, to me, I think, is the oxymoronic idea or ideology of not knowing who you are. So he's having these experiences, and it ties him to Kigali. He has an elder. Her name is Dr. M'bwebe Nia, and she's a shaman, tech enthusiast, and she's a preserver of our story. And they're all technologically savvy, but they're using ancestral perspectives and methods, and they are understanding that history can be saved in code, and code can be seen in imagery, in art, in frequency, and in sound. And I'm again pulling stuff from movies I've seen, from stories I've heard, and just from our ancestral database. And they go on this journey to meet, and they are able to. They have this hybrid villain. His name is Agent Cross, and Agent Cross is actually still fighting with his implants at certain points. There's certain frequencies that are using. I'm not gonna give away too much, but there's certain instruments, ancestral instruments that we have that puts out a certain frequency that can put you into a place in the mind state of your original being. And so these folks go on this venture to learn how to connect to their ancestral heritage, to use these methodologies to fight what Big Brother has set in place. And I think it's a thriller. It's a page turner, and I think the most part, I think that it encourages folks to understand that we can survive what's happening. We are able to survive what's happening. We're going to have to adapt, and we don't have to comply. We don't have to take what they're going to give to us. And if you really make it, as I mentioned earlier, in simplistic terms, if you can have control of your water, your food, and your shelter and defense, then you could go off grid. And there are certain parts in the world where everything won't be as tightly constructed as it may be here in America or in the UK. Maybe in Africa, they'll be different. In the Caribbean, it may be different. These are my hopes. But again, this is something to just give us an idea of we're global, and that the moment that we decide to reconnect diasporically and bring in all of our cultures, no matter what the differences are, at the core of it all, we are definitely one with Earth and one with our ancestors. So if we tap into that source, I'm a firm believer that we will figure out ways to deal with what's happening.
So do you think this fight? You think this is a spiritual warfare situation that might take place? I mean, as far as you think in the book is concerned too, and in reality as well, we're gonna have to tap in, like you say, with the creator that's within, in order to help guide us out of this mess. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I pulled from the energies of Octavia Butler. I mean, Parable of the Sower to me hit me. I read that maybe 20 years ago, and it hit me so hard because I was like, man, like this could really happen, and we need more writers from our perspective to talk about tragedy and challenge, because now I can get out of my head about it and recall what someone may have their perspective, or how they endured these things. Because I'm not a David Downer type of dude. I'm not saying the sky is falling, but Babylon is. And
Okay.
we understand that, do you choose to fall with it?
Come on, brother.
And so if we're going to fall with it, then if you're still here and you're in the crosshairs, I mean, I don't know a person that's willingly ready to just take their lives. I'm not willing to just, end it all. I want to stay here as long as I can, but I also want to live in peace. I don't want to live in bondage. So therefore there's the conflict. So I think that it's definitely spiritual warfare. It's physical, mental. It's all of those warfares, because they declared that on us since they were kicked out of Eden, if you really do the history. And so we have to understand that. The funny thing about it, though, is really interesting. What I'm trying to understand is they're creating a beast that they won't be able to tame.
You live by it to die, but I think that's the very thing that's might save us.
And I'm like, look, please understand, go after your maker, not someone that had nothing to do with all this. Not, but but because there's one part where people talk about how AI is gonna, get rid of the human race. We've seen movies because you humans are destructive, so I'm gonna annihilate you so you don't kill the planet. I get that part. But I think they're intelligent enough, or will become intelligent enough, to know the history of race relations. These are the things. So this other part I want to talk about, as far as language is understanding, as far as fueling your chat GPTs and your AIs, etc., these LLMs, large language modules, is that we need to put information into it, because that's what they do. They pull stuff from the internet to give you information, and they just spit it out in an authentic way. If we're not putting out information about counter solutions, because I do believe that AI is intelligent enough to understand race relations, but also we can help it by putting out our analysis of these relations that we've had with colonizers. If we put the information out about the historical analysis of, because they're trying to cancel it, right? Woke cancel, they're trying to cancel all that stuff. So if we're putting out the information of the historical relations, then they'll be intelligent enough to know, hey, these white folks been kind of real destructive since their creation. And so maybe we don't get rid of everybody, but we just focus on them. Who's the cancer?
Yeah. Ooh.
You know what I'm saying? So if we focus on the cancer, then maybe the planet can flourish. So I have that hope too, but I don't want to just rely on hope. So part of that is having these conversations, doing my writings, putting out information that supports our story, that talks about the real narrative between our relations with them, speaking about the eugenic practices that they employ, so that not only are we being aware, but we're also teaching this AI, because AI is always learning. So I think this is why I implore the importance of us being writers of our story. We need to put this stuff out into the ether so that even AI can learn from us and learn the truth.
Yeah. Well, as you were describing your writing process, I was thinking that just as it happened with George Orwell, it happened with you. I'm not sure that Orwell knew how prophetic what he wrote was. And I'm thinking perhaps, what you received was a download. Perhaps it was ancestral information, ancestral intelligence being channeled into you. And so you write this book, and then we fast forward to 2048 and see the impact of what you wrote. So I just wanted to put that out there. The second thing was, you talked about counter solutions, and you talked about the power of writers. And one thing that I've been advocating for those of us who are writers is to write counter narratives, so that we decide, we define what the future looks like, because it is partly reliant upon our visualization and the manifestation that comes along with our visualization. So if M'bwebe envisions a world in 2048 where Black people return to their glory, perhaps that's what creates that reality.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we unite as writers with the same mission and the same purpose, we turned off the Super Bowl and we said, we're going to write this novel, we're going to write this movie, we're going to write this documentary, and we're going to define the narrative that suits us. We take the power away from those who are seeking to define our reality. You know, we established that they've defined a reality of scarcity for us.
Yes.
When we live in a universe of abundance.
Yes.
Right. So let's take the pen and let's use the power of the pen to define the reality that suits us.
Well, here's just one other thing with that though. And I think if we have enough stewards or have enough people that are talking about and understand this whole thing about energy, vibration, and frequency, things like that, that knowledge is there. Like when you said you had a download, we need to teach other people to prepare themselves, like Wayne said, be ready for the download or be able to get the download. You know what I'm saying? So I think naturally, if we prepare people to receive the download, then we're going to figure out what's necessary or what we need to be doing, because you're going to connect to what our ancestral base their knowledge based on, or what they left in the cosmos for us to download, and so to move forward. Because apparently this situation and where everything is set up on is not operating on a good frequency. They're not operating on a good frequency at all. So if we teach people to cleanse ourselves, to meditate and to get back in nature, which I always talk about, nature would take you right to God and things. So once you do that and make that connection, it's almost like what the last poet say, free the mind and the behind will follow. Once you free that mind, you're going to connect and you're going to start doing those things that is necessary for your survival.
Absolutely. I think, the best thing that we have available to us is reclaiming our attention. I agree totally with turn the Super Bowl off. Let's do 3 hours instead of 30 minutes. I do also know people have, the pace. They want to be, let me just get in, let me just start it and see what it feels like. But I think that the most important thing that we have in us is the ability to decide where we give our attention. And this is, again, a systemic design. When you think about marketing, when you think about the idiot box, and now we think about social media, that folks are glued on receiving information from some source. And I talk about this even to my young students, like, algorithms. If you look at your algorithm on a social media feed and it's a bunch of chaos and nonsense, that's who you are. That's who they're trying to keep you as. So how do you break that? You need to put in some John Henry Clark. You need to put in some Francis Cress Welsing. You need to put in some Wayne Chandler, some Tony Browder, some M'bwebe Ishangi. You need to put some of this in your feed to break up that algorithm so that you will start now receiving information that's going to enhance your ability to think. And so really, I think about today, like when I get up every day, it's like, not only do I think about what have I fed my cells today, but who's getting my attention today? Where am I focusing my attention? Am I going to focus on Eurocentric media and colonizers manipulation? Or am I going to dig in, sit at the altar for a little bit? Or if I don't have an altar, sit in the altar in my mind and connect with the ancestors and figure out how I can create a better life for not just me, but for those that are ensuing.
That's a powerful suggestion, brother M'bwebe. I couldn't agree with you more. To alter the algorithm so that they begin to bring benefit to you. Because look, man, I can practice Tai Chi because I keep watching the Tai Chi videos. Right. So every day on Facebook, I'm seeing a new exercise, so we kind of store them. But I think too, I think we should challenge ourselves to use our own memories. We rely on the phones, man. When you go to call somebody, you don't remember the number. You go to your phone and you just pull their name up and you send it, And And so we do ridiculous things, like someone will ask for your email address and you'll say, it's my name at gmail.com. And then the person will say, well, can you text it to me?
Right.
And I'm like, no,
laziness, pure
I
laziness.
know.
But
I
they're
know.
called poor stewards.
Yeah.
You know, a poor steward is someone that like inherits a certain kind of wealth, but they mishandle it. And the wealth that we have right now is that things are at our fingertips. So we don't exercise our mind anymore because we know the phone will remember it until the phone breaks, or you know the Wi-Fi or the network is down, and then we panic. So and I'm as responsible, guilty as well. You know, I rely on the phone as well, and I think about a time when I didn't. I remember having a phone book and everybody's number, and I would remember the names. I didn't really need the phone, but it was just a case. But I knew everybody's number that I need to be in contact with. Ask me those numbers now, it's going to be a problem. So it's about exercising the mind, and this is the allurement. This is the spell that's been casted upon us. Convenience isn't always a great tool to have. Convenience takes away something from you, the ability to process, the ability to exercise, the ability to be independent. Now I'm dependent on this phone to contact an emergency contact. So that's the part of it too, is that, yeah, technology is great in some kind of ways, but we've also totally dismayed or went away from how we used our minds from memory, how we were able to, like, I can't recall hearing a person that drops information and then say who they cited the source from. I read it from this book, this author. You know, everybody's, as you mentioned, you know, with these reels, they put it out as though it's their information. They don't give you enough to go and find it on your own. No, just tune into my next one and I'll tell you something else, because I'm the bestower. And this is not our information to behold. It's to be shared. And I think that we don't give our griots, our elders, our writers living in transition enough respect and flowers for the work that they've done.
Well, you know what? You mentioned convenience, and convenience is what is being used to sell us on the traps that they want to put us in. You know,
For sure.
you can just come in the store and wave your hand over the sensor, and we took the money out your account. You can be on your way. You know, it's just the way that they're looking to control things.
See, you know, one thing before you step off, one thing that, you know, two things that has to be done, and if we're looking for any kind of hope and where we're going as far as direction is concerned, you know, and one thing that I like about Africa that is funny, and eventually you might can recognize what I'm saying, is that how they was able to marry tech with culture. You see, I mean, you could be out in the bush and they be tending cows and doing what they do and have a cell phone. You know what I mean? Because, you know, and it's funny when you see that like that, but they're still involved into their culture,
yes,
and way of life, but they're using tech still to communicate. So they still, you know, and it's wonderful how they're able to still do that. You know what I mean? Because they have culture embedded in it.
Yeah.
We're not, it's going to be difficult for us as a people. Like they say with the substance abuse arena, you first got to recognize that you got a problem for healing can take place. A lot of us is haven't recognized what these things that you're talking about is actually doing to us. You know, that we sitting around looking at these phones and we're not communicating at the dinner table anymore. What's that doing? It's a guy that I wish I had his name right at the bottom. I can't think about it. He talked about with these computers and all the blue light that is coming from the backdrop of these computers. That's why they went to digital, you know, and not dealing with analog and stuff like that anymore, because this blue light and the digital stuff, he talked about how this blue light is affecting us looking at the screen. So get some blue blockers and all those particular things. So they know by you looking at that phone all the time and engage into the computer and engage into the TV all the time, it's affecting you as far as frequencies and things like that. So until we have more education on that and recognize that, I don't think it'd be difficult for us to pivot and look at a new way, like we talked about in earlier, a new way of doing some things. So I think we're just ignorant to all those things are actually what's coming down on us and what's happening to us and how it's further taking us away from nature, from ourselves and understanding ourselves. And so it's by us not having that particular knowledge, that's how they have us trapped into this way and pointing us into their direction.
Yes. So you talked about marrying culture and technology, and I'm just thinking about how in different places in Africa, like Kenya, for instance, they use something called the M-Pesa. So
Mhm.
people are able to make purchases using their cell phones
Mhm.
and another type of currency. They figured out a way to do things digitally, and I think that's going to be one of the big game changers right now. So I just want to switch gears and you know for lack of a better way of putting it, take advantage of the fact that we have a financial expert with us today and talk a little bit about cryptocurrency. It's not something that just came yesterday, but it's something that is rapidly being taken advantage of by the people who manage money. You have institutions like BlackRock and Vanguard and Fidelity and others who 4 or 5 years ago were saying that cryptocurrency was an evil tool,
Right.
and they've done a 180. And now you
Mhm.
have Bitcoin ETFs, and now you got XRP ETFs, and everybody's joining the bandwagon and taking advantage of the blockchain. So why is it important for us to know what cryptocurrency is and what can it do for us right now?
I think number one, it's important to know about cryptocurrency because this is where money is shifting to. Fiat currency is days are numbered, and as I mentioned about UBI, Universal Basic Income, this will probably be a vehicle that will be used. How you will receive a stipend, be it biweekly, monthly. I don't know what their plans are, but pretty much we are seeing it now. They got rid of the penny. I mean, they're going to slowly get rid of the nickel, the dime, et cetera. Coins and paper money's next. We're rarely using it now anyway. Most of us aren't carrying cash. We're using our debit cards, and those debit cards are just digital numbers. It's not necessarily an actual dollar in your account. Um, so cryptocurrency is where things are headed. Um, but also the benefits currently with cryptocurrency is, and they're working on it, trying to stop it. But it's a global currency. It's not tied to any country. Now you have countries that are trying to monopolize it, as with everything else they try to do. Um, but currently, you have your OGs like your Bitcoins, Ethereums, XRPs, Solana, and all those other ones that are still here. And you have, I can't even remember what the numbers are. The number changes every week, how many more cryptocurrencies are out there. But it offers something that gives you the ability to have it grow. It has a compound interest tool to it, where the longer you hold it and the value of it goes up, so does the amount that you have. So if you have $1 worth of crypto, let's say you have $1 worth of Bitcoin, and it jumps up $100, now that dollar turns into $100. Um, and same if it goes down, there's volatility, but in the long spectrum of it, everything is going up. The value is going up. So if you hold on to it, or you just continue to invest in it, then you actually have the ability to create some wealth, much more than any savings account, IRA, Roth, 401k could ever offer. And so this is why we find folks like banking institutions. Jamie Dimon, who's the CEO of Chase, once said over 5 years ago that if any of his employees bought Bitcoin, that he would fire them. That same period, he went and bought a whole boatload of Bitcoin, and then came out with a blockchain platform a few years later. So this is all about folks trying to tell you, hey, don't get involved. Let me get in front of you, and then I'll sell it to you as a product. Opposed to, hey, we're on even playing fields here. You might not have as much money as I do, but you can still get in and create a certain kind of wealth that could contribute to an infinite banking system where you are pulling from your own bank. You are your own bank. You don't need to put your money in any vaults. You can put it into something like a trust or a whole life insurance policy and live off of that. You won't even have to step into a bank ever. They don't want that because they need you as a customer. So these are the type of benefits that cryptocurrency brings upon us in the time being. Now, again, as I mentioned, some things are being programmable, like Ethereum is a programmable currency. Hopefully, it stays in the realm of where no one's really controlling it, that is decentralized, and that no one can actually control it. But you have other coins like you have USD, et cetera. They're going to come out with their own and try to push everybody to use their coins. And it could come to a point where, because there's so many coins, they may say, well, we only accept these coins. Just like if you go into another country, we're not going to take the dollar, or we're not going to take the yen. So that could possibly be a barrier, but you have conversions. So we'll just have to look into, if I could pick another career, it would be to be a hacker. I would love to know how to hack and understand the behind the scenes programming of everything, because they are the ones that are creating these opportunities and these loopholes. So if you're not a hacker, I would say keep your ears open to those type of things, because these are the ones that are not complying to the systemic design that they're trying to put in place for us. So I see it as a great opportunity. And as I mentioned, as crazy as things are today, this is actually the best time to be alive, because now we get to really fulfill something that is greater than ourselves. Like, really, it's not about my life. It's about 100 years from now. What can I do that Rockefeller did? He placed something for 100 years. It's still going. I want to do the same thing, but just not as malicious.
Right.
You use the term infinite banking. Could you go a little bit more in depth in terms of what that is?
So R.A. Nelson wrote a book about infinite banking systems, and infinite banking systems are, I always use this example of whole life insurance. If you were to get a whole life insurance policy, one of the benefits of that is that you are, whatever company you're with, if it's a whole life insurance policy, you are part owner of the company. So you're not buying a share, you're a policy holder. So therefore you receive, every annual birth date of your policy, you will receive a dividend from the performance of the insurance company. So the benefits of infinite banking is that when you create a whole life insurance policy, you have a portion of your payment that goes towards the premium to cover your insurance in case something happens. And then you also have a portion that goes into a cash asset vault. This is your savings account. And this savings account at minimum is guaranteed state by state at 4%. So that's already over 3% more than what a bank could ever offer you in a savings account. In addition to that is, if you add more to it, if you put, frivolous spending, and you can control your spending, and I teach this through my financial therapy courses, is that if you learn how to figure out what your expenses are versus your income, then whatever you have left over can be used for investments. So if you invest in it, and it could be, if it's $2, invest it. If it's $50 or $100 or whatever it is, invest that into something that has a compound return. So when you're putting it into something like a whole life insurance policy that grows at least minimum 4%, depending on the company, they may have an additional anywhere between 4.25% to 6%. So now you're looking at 10, 11% on your return every time you put extra money into that. So you're talking about growing over time, compounded interest, fixed, that you could then grow a certain amount of money. That my goal for someone to be financially sustainable is to match your income at your current employer. And once you match that, if you can 3 times that, then you leave your job, because now you're living off your compound interest. And if you ever need the money for something like life expenses, then you loan it to yourself. That is the cash asset vault that has grown and continues to grow. You pull out what you need for your monthly bills, leave the rest, let that continue to grow, and you use that money to live off of. And when you pay the loan back, you're paying interest back to yourself. So infinite banking allows you to become your own bank. You don't have to wait for biweekly paycheck. You don't have to wait for going home on a Friday or showing up on a Monday and being told you let go, where they tell you that they can let you go immediately, but you got to give them 2 weeks notice when you want to leave. We don't have to worry about that nonsense anymore, because now you are owning your time. And when you own your time, then you can start to figure out, why was I really born? What am I really here to do? What's my purpose for being here? And focus on that. And hopefully it's in the realms of helping your people.
Okay. You can also borrow against the value of your cryptocurrency, I believe.
Yes.
Can we talk about how
Yes.
you would do that?
So you can actually, there are certain platforms that allow you to obviously put your crypto up for collateral. And if you want to borrow from that, you can pull out from that value, and it's on you to pay it back. If you don't pay it back, they keep your crypto. But the beautiful thing about this, along with whole life insurance policies, is when you take out a loan, it's tax free. So you're not taxed on those loans. If you pull out money out of your Roth or your 401k, like when I worked for the NBA, and then I pulled out money out of my 401k, because I lived in New York City, I got taxed 5 times. Okay. Depends on what state you're in, is how many times you're going to get taxed on your own money. It's my money. But I got hit 5 times from it. So I lost, a great amount opposed to what I was trying to pull out. So when you are taking a loan from crypto, or taking a loan from your whole life insurance policy, then you're basically not taxed. And if you have a trust set up, you don't have to report anything. That's a whole nother conversation. But these are these financial therapeutic conversations we need to have, because this is what the white boy's been doing.
Absolutely. Question. I got a question. It was posted after I got off the phone with my friend. I said, I don't think it would work like that. I don't think it's an issue. He brought up the issue. I brought up the issue about cryptocurrency, the conversation about cryptocurrency. And then he, was questioning it a little bit. And he made the statement, what that the crypto was bought with fiat currency. So your take on, if we eliminate fiat currency, or fiat currency take a dive, and would it affect the crypto that you bought with the fiat currency? And after I thought about it, I said, why should it? But anyway, your thought.
Yes, it doesn't. It's converted. So once you purchase, $1's worth of Bitcoin, it's Bitcoin. It's not $1 anymore. It has a dollar value, obviously, if you're going to use it for USD. But if you go to Costa Rica, it's going to be their currency. If you go to Kemet, it's going to be their currency. So it's and the thing is that it's not their currency until you convert it. So now, if you buy Bitcoin, it's Bitcoin. And if you want to,
regardless of what I bought, what I use, what currency I use to buy the Bitcoin with, it don't matter. Yeah, I mean, he made that statement, and it was coming. He said it was coming from somebody from Secret Service, and he was trying to say that crypto is not, the wheel's gonna fall off from under it, but because it's you purchasing it with fiat currency. And after I hung up the phone, when I said, well, wait a minute, I don't know if that holds any water. Go ahead.
I would say, brother, channel in Harriet Tubman. Channel her in.
So, and M'bwebe, I wanted to get to one other thing that you could use crypto to generate money for, and that's staking. Staking would be different from borrowing from yourself, but just like in a bank, you can make a certificate of deposit. You could also use your cryptocurrency being held as collateral to generate interest payments. Could you talk about how that works?
I'm gonna yield that to you, because I have really yet to really get involved in that space, and I will admit some things that I don't know. So I can yield that to you. School me on that.
Well, it's really simple. You have exchanges like Coinbase, Kraken, some of the decentralized exchanges. You have an exchange called Uphold, and you can actually use that like a bank. So they're holding your crypto, and then they'll pay you interest like 3-4% a year. So you can use your crypto, contrary to what the brother said, Brother Antonio, contrary to what he said, your cryptocurrency sitting in the account can be used to create more cryptocurrency. And I think, and I'll suggest to folks, first of all, we're not financial advisors. Maybe M'bwebe is, but I'm not.
I'm not.
Okay. I'm not financial advisors. This is information, entertainment, education only. but there are different ways that you can use cryptocurrency. Now, looking into the numbers, there was a time when you could go to Coin Market Cap, and as soon as you pulled it up, it would tell you how many cryptocurrencies there are. And I remember the last time I looked at it, it was something like 24 million.
Yeah.
But in actuality, there are only about 21,000. A lot of those cryptocurrencies were crash and burns and things that just didn't make the cut. But there are 21,000 cryptocurrencies, and there are a number of them that are connected to something called ISO 222. And it's basically a communication system for banks around the world to be able to interact with each other. So you have tokens like XRP and Algorand and Cardano and some of the others that are compliant with this communication system. And as a result of that, they're going to have a use in this newly transformed system. I mean, they've already flipped the switch.
Right.
We have a new system in place.
Right.
The old Swift system, because it ain't really Swift, is being phased out. You know, so the days where you have to wait three days or 5 days for money to clear, with the blockchain, 3 seconds, the transaction occurred. It's a peer-to-peer transaction. You didn't have somebody else involved in it. The money moves from you to another person. For instance, yesterday, somebody wanted some XRP. So all I had to do was take it from my account and send it to his. He gave me his wallet address. I copied and pasted it. I put it in a window on the screen and hit send. Boom, he got it. You know, that's how things are now. And when you think about it, for those who have lots of money, they don't want it sitting somewhere for 3 days doing nothing.
Right.
You know, so you got a new way to move money faster. The banks had to make a change. They were forced to. They didn't want to, because they make their money with fees.
Right.
They make their money holding your money. You know, but when they found out that they had some competition, now all of a sudden, you know, that 180 happened. You know, you got BlackRock sitting on almost $12 trillion in assets. And BlackRock has customers that say, I want this. So, you know, that's really where we are. So I'm just making this point to let the folks who are watching know that this is something that you need to know about. You can't just sit on the sidelines and say, oh, that, you know, that's a scam. Oh, it's whatever it is. Because while you're saying those things, people are on the other side of the fence making huge sums of money and creating intergenerational wealth, because that's really what this is all about.
Yes.
It's about intergenerational wealth. It's not about just hoarding massive amounts of money. You know, the billionaires, that's what they do. They're sitting on billions of dollars and giving out trinkets here and there, but they're passing that wealth down just like Rockefeller did, just like the Waltons are doing, and all the others that have all this money. That's what they're doing. But it doesn't mean that we can't do the same thing, you know, but just be intentional about it. And as was stated earlier in our broadcast, and I think it was Brother Antonio that mentioned it. Well, I think it was you, M'bwebe, use it for good, not for evil. You know, use it for, you said that, Ham. Yeah, use it for good. That's what we must do. And we have to flip the switch. We got to change the paradigm. We can't be stuck. You know, once upon a time, we were using horses. Now we got electric vehicles.
About to have flying vehicles.
Yeah, flying vehicles. So why would you go back to riding a horse when you can get there in 5 minutes instead of 25 minutes? It doesn't make sense. You know, that's where we are now.
If I may add too, that I tell folks, because that's when you think about intergenerational wealth, people think, well, you know, but I don't have anything, I don't have enough, or well, how do I start it? I tell folks, man, for Black folk, the lowest hanging fruit you could ever do is open up an insurance policy, and not term, the whole life insurance policy. Yes, the premiums are higher, but terms, you know, they're termed. So, and I say that because, you know, we're still targeted for, you know, by Popo and other stuff, you know, as far as us killing us. we're not prepared for those deaths. And unfortunately, they're going to continue to happen. So why not financially arm ourselves, just like corporations do, right? When you get a job, they take out insurance on you. So if something happens, guess who gets paid? They get paid. This is something from the plantation era. So we can take those same type of tactics and apply it to ourselves and our families. I shouldn't be the only person insured in my family. All of us should be. When the Rockefellers bring new life into the world, they insure that baby. The moment that it's, I won't say the moment, but as soon as it's born, they take out a whole life insurance policy. This child becomes 13. You wonder why their bar mitzvahs are so laid out? Because they got 13 years worth of investments sitting there that's been put in there on over a decade plus. We could do the very same thing. That if we take out insurance policies, not only would that enable us to enrich our bloodlines, it could also probably stop Popo from killing us. Because these insurance companies are going to be like, hey,
you're paying out too much.
Y'all costing us too much. Y'all need to simmer down on these deaths because we can't be paying out these families. So if you really want a resolution, if we're looking for a 40-acre and a mule solution, get insured. Get insured. So if in case something happens, and get multiple insurances. And I tell folks too, like for instance, if you take out an insurance policy out in your name, and you obviously the older you are, the higher you pay. Take the next and following insurance policies out of the youngest person in your family, and you become the custodian of that policy. So if I am 50 plus years old and I have a child that is a teenager, obviously our premiums are different. I'm paying much more than he is or she is. So if I take out my future policies, additional, not just one policy, but several policies moving forward in that child's name, my premiums are lower. And I'm the custodian of that policy. And the beautiful thing about whole life insurance policies are you don't have to wait to die to be able to use it. You could pull out a loan and use it in real life. So these are low ball hanging fruit type of strategies that we can implement.
And to that point, if you use that policy to take money out and put it into something that could generate income, then you're positioning yourself to create wealth. And these are the lessons that we don't learn. They don't teach us this in school.
Right.
We should be having whole life insurance policy workshops every week somewhere in this city
purposely
to put folks on game. So that's a great idea.
Here's the point though, and let's refocus this. And you mentioned it again, Vince. What I said about the consciousness of the individual is very important. The way I look at the system, we got to balance this thing here. And we can't be the Stockholm syndrome and become the same entity that we're trying to get away from. Once we enter this wealth building situation, we got to understand that we're going to do it another way. I mean, once we get the wealth and the things that we're going to do, we're going to work this wealth in harmony with the planet, and in harmony with the community, with harmony and vibrations with the energy on the planet. We got to be careful that we don't get too involved in becoming, because we're going to end up in the same dead end that we're headed, that this planet is headed, if we become and emulate and assimilate into the same culture that we're in right now. So we got to be mindful that we're understanding where we're at. We're taking these skills, but we're taking it to another level that is more compatible for the situation. I'm just saying we got to be careful that we don't become the same thing that we're trying to get out of. And that means that trying to use capitalism to fix our problem. You can't use the same system that trapped us in it. But if you do it with the right consciousness and understanding the purpose of why you're doing it,
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brother M'bwebe, I brought up your slides. Do you want to let us know what this is about?
Yeah, I'm gonna zip through because we kind of covered a lot of it today, but the overall message is, we're in the information age, and we need people to create information. Um, we need to be informed about not only what's happening, but what has happened, and then also be bestowers of that information so that um, we present it in a way that is palatable for all generations, especially for those younger ones who may suffer from a little bit more of an attention deficit. So, we need to be able to be both creative and assertive in putting out information as much and as often as possible. I've written more in the last year than I have in several years, because before I was doing posts, and you have certain social media handles that are good for certain posts, like Facebook and all that. People aren't coming to read articles, and Instagram, they just want to see images. So I was a little disgruntled about not having a space to put out information. But I found a platform, and I'm not plugging them, but it's a great space that allows you to do some reading, and also share some writing. But with this slide here, I just wanted to talk about real briefly. We talked about some of the, again, we did some of these things, but in general, you don't have to be a master to be a writer. Like, I'll just give it, and just let you understand, I got F's in college in writing. I even had the editor, I won't say her name, at Essence, years ago, when I submitted an article. She had the audacity to grade it, put an F on it, and send it back to me. And of course, it was African centered, so I guess it wasn't for their magazine, and I understood that. But it motivated me to create my own magazine, The Ghetto Times, and I did that in 1993. But writing is so important because it gives us, especially if you write from a cultural perspective, then it allows our story to continue to live, because someone may read that story or that article today, tomorrow, 20 years from now, and it could be someone that's trying and they're in search of. So it's important that we put information out there, because if not, our story's going to get forgotten.
That's what our ancestors did.
And one of the things I always speak about too is that, to counter why we need to be writing, is because they've been writing. And to them, history is always written by the winners. So their whole idea is, if we can convey the lie that we're the victims, but we persevered. And what's one of the first things that folks do? Europeans have done when the colonizers did, is the first thing they did once they won is they went and found the archives. They attacked the libraries. They took them over. And this is where you saw plagiarism. You saw, like, Aristotle didn't write over 1,000 different topics. We find the manipulation and total takeover of our story. So we also see that in modern times, there's this suppression, this focused suppression on keeping our vehicles for conveying and sharing information down. We look at the Black bookstore situation. Currently, we've seen from 2000 to 2025 a drop of 62% of our Black bookstores, whereas in the 1970s we had 1,000 plus Black bookstores, and that's still a small number when you're talking about we're like 14 million people in this country, and there's only 1,000 Black bookstores, whereas today we have about 117 left. So these Black bookstores, if you know the history of COINTELPRO and their demise of the Black bookstores by surveying people and making them feel like they wouldn't feel comfortable because they're being monitored by the CIA, to have these places where think tanks happened, where information and strategies were conveyed, people were spooked, so they stopped buying the Black bookstores. And also you had your white bookstores that integrated and started taking in black books. And because a lot of us still suffer from the Stockholm syndrome and thinking that the white man's ice is colder, we forego our Black bookstores and went to your Barnes and Nobles, etc. And all they did was put us in a compartmentalized area in the back. Right. So we've had the dismay and dismantle of Black bookstores. So therefore our source for receiving information has been tethered to these YouTube real scholars who want to put out something just for the convenience of getting likes and controlling the information, opposed to giving flowers to who birthed that information in the first place. So all this again is about history being written by the winners, and also making it seem as though they were the victims when in actuality they're the ones that started the whole scam. I mentioned about well, I didn't talk about the saculum, and the saculum is a piece where a saculum is something that is put out by the Strauss House, a generational theory, where things happen over a period of 4 generations, roughly 20, 21 years apart. And we're in that space now where we're ending a current saculum. This saculum is the one that I believe was conjured up by Rockefeller. And so these periods are about to end, and we're entering a new period. And this is where in the book, my book up from railroads to robots, I speak about, again, as I mentioned earlier, about Rockefeller's plan of controlling the masses through education, through health, and through banking. And so when you have those things in control, then you can kind of, appropriate the direction you want the masses to go, and they don't even realize that they're being steered in the wrong way. So I get into, we spoke about AI, and I think that these are conversations we need to have more about, opposed to not just what ChatGPT can do for you, but what really is it and what is its function. And its function pretty much is to make decisions and do things that we can already do. But again, when you yield something like that to another thing, you lose the skill because now you become lazy because it's doing everything for you. But it trains and notices patterns, and it can make predictions, and folks are becoming more and more dependent on AI, and we're hearing it more and more every day, even more than cryptocurrency. Is funny, but those things go hand in hand. But I am always trying to find the etymology of things. So the idea of AI was, they say, most folks will say, it was birthed by Alan Turing in 1950s, and basically with the question of can machines learn. In 1956, there was a conference in Dartmouth College where the coin phrase of AI was conjured. And some other things in the timeline. We saw the first chat box called Eliza in 1966. In 1997, we saw AI beat, it was called Deep Blue, beat Kasparov at chess, the first computer to beat a human. Then we saw Watson AI win at Jeopardy in 2011. And then in 2014, we started to see AI creating images and deep fakes. 2018, we started seeing self-driving taxis and cars. And now between 2018 and today, we're seeing LLMs, or large language modules, evolve. This is where your chat GPTs and Geminis and all these other ones are pulling information from to give you information you're thinking is conjuring up himself. All it's doing is pulling data from the internet and then conveying it, wrapping it in a different type of bow. Now, what really intrigued me was, if you can go back to that slide, brother, is the book that's on the screen, The Age of Spiritual Machines by Ray Kurzweil. I read this book in 1999, and it really opened me up to understanding that, damn, these things we've seen in the movies is really going to happen in our lifetime. And when I read the book, I thought, well, hey, this is a guy that's, pretty much against what's happening, and he's informing people about what's coming, kind of like your George Orwell. Come to find out that shortly after he published this book, he was hired by Google. Google hired him, and he is the brain trust behind Google's emerge from SEOs, Google searches, to even Gemini. He is the brain power behind it. So you have a person that comes across as they're telling you, hey, this is what's coming and it's really bad and we should do something about it, to, hey, I actually joined the forces and I'm responsible for manifesting it, which was kind of crazy. But what's next is not just AI, but it's getting upgraded on a consistent basis. And what's next is we're seeing is AGI, which is artificial general intelligence. And this is the type that can be better at understanding and applying knowledge across different tasks, much like humans can. So that when we're seeing these robots coming on the scene, like, the Jetsons, Rose, we're going to see these robots cooking our food, doing our laundry, etc., doing things autonomously. This is artificial general intelligence at work. But the next level is artificial super intelligence. And this is where it goes beyond what any human could ever think, to the point where they may have no need for us. That's the thing that I want people to understand, is that they are creating a beast that they will not be able to control. And whereas AGI is expected to come around 2030 to 2040, artificial superintelligence may come within the next 30 to 50 years. But that's just a projection. Because AI is at its own pace and not harnessed, it could come as soon as next year. Who knows? We don't know what the growth is going to be. The part that I also, when I study about these things, I look at how it's affecting our community. And the one thing that folks are most likely ignorant about is the effects that it has geologically when you're using something like a chat GPT. Because some people are using chat GPT for simple things like show me how to make an apple pie or whatever, just dumb things, just to experiment. They're not understanding the environmental repercussions of that one query or that prompt. They say that up to 10 inquiries or prompts in ChatGPT can use as much as a 16-ounce bottle of water. And what is this water used for? Is for the servers, the computers that are generating this information. They run off of energy, and the energy heats it up, so they need water to cool it down. So this water that they're using, they're not using dirty water either. They're using the best and purest of waters. They're using municipal waters. They're using, and not to say that that's the best water for us to be drinking either, but they'll use the water we drink to cool off these servers. So most of these servers are being placed in urban areas where we live. So we're competing against these servers to have clean water. And because it's a losing battle, because more and more people are using AI, using things like ChatGPT to put in inquiries, the demand is higher. That makes the scarcity for people to use water higher. And what they're offering is for us to start drinking bottled water. Now, again, I mentioned about Rockefeller and its oil residue, the toxin, and one of them being plastic. Well, if you know about that, then you should definitely not be drinking anything out of plastic. Now, I got to go back in time. Maybe 30, 40 years ago, we used to receive beverages and everything was in glass. When you go in the store right now, everything's in plastic. I go into the store right now and I see nothing but toxins and poison in our stores, in our marketplaces. And it's interesting also to note that if you go into a grocery store and they have a health section, then what is the rest of the store? Right? So we don't understand that we are surrounded by this toxin that Rockefeller has now monetized. And now in the urban areas where we live, because we're also playing into our own demise by using ChatGPT for stupid reasons, we're being forced to have less and less water. And this will continue as AI becomes stronger and more and wider used, and the water becomes less available for us. So we need to be thinking about capturing water. And in some states, they make it illegal to capture water on your own land. Again, a form of control. But there should be ways that we should be looking into building cisterns that can capture water, having a hydraulic to push the water up and also to clean it. We need to be thinking about alternative ways that we used to do before we were tethered to industry to live off the land. A couple more slides here. So this is again me bringing in the part that we are responsible for what's happening. We pay part in our demise. And I mentioned the whole quote before about the hard times creating strong men, is that the saculum that we're at right now is ending. There's a new one happening, or one is ending, and there's going to be a new one happening. But we need to understand, in order for us to fight what's coming, we need to go back and reclaim Sankofa. Go back and reclaim our ancestral intelligence. Get in touch with that inner being that's older than you, that you come from, that womb connection that we all have with our ancestors. Tap into that. That's also a plug in the book that I have, that in 2048, there's a part in there. But that connection is what's going to give us direction, answers, and solutions. We might not be able to say them verbally right now, but as you actually spend more time on that frequency, I believe those downloads are there waiting for us to have.
There's no doubt. I agree.
And then one more after this one. The other part is that you can get involved or be forced to get involved. Some folks will say, well, I'm not really interested in all this AI stuff, and it doesn't interest you, and it's scary or whatever the reason. So you just will, turn your back on it or figure you'll deal with it when you have no choice. Well, that choice is being made for you already because job scarcity is on the rise. We're seeing that our kids are in school studying things that will not even be relevant when they get out of school for jobs. I mentioned earlier about the job scarcity of 1 in 6 folks will be having the jobs as far as graduates that are available because there's not enough jobs produced. And that number is going to get even higher because AI is taking over a lot of the blue and white collar job space. So we're going to be left to take either UBI, universal basic income, or work on sustainable sovereignty. These are the choices that you're going to have. And these choices are going to be not within 5 years, I would say within 2. And the last piece is just a plug about the book that I have. This is a QR code if you want to pre-order. It will be out January 27th. It'll be available, a digital, paperback, and the audiobook version will be coming out shortly after that. But again, I wrote this book with the intentions of exposing us to and introducing us to the technological warfare and lifestyle that's being implemented, and that it's not something to fear. I think it's something that we should embrace. I think that our ancestors have prepared solutions for us, and it doesn't take a mass to make an impact. Work on your individual circle, then you scale out. So yeah, I yield my time, brother. Appreciate the opportunity.
Well, we appreciate you being with us today. And it was really important for me to let folks know about these great resources that you have created. I applaud you for being prolific as a writer. I'm still, I don't want to say envious, but I'm excited about the fact that you could write a book in 3 days. I don't know that I will be able to duplicate that, but I got a manuscript that I've been sitting on for a minute. So I think it's time for me to get busy. So perhaps this was the catalyst to motivate me to get it out there, but also to think about writing different kinds of things. You know, I write poetry, I write essays from time to time, but I thank you for that. You know, it's lighting that fire and getting things done. So congratulations to you on your 8th book. Can't wait to read it. I'm sure it's going to be a great read, and perhaps the next flight I take, I'll take it with me. And by the time I get to my destination, I'll be good. There are so many areas that we can talk about. You know, my brother Hamtonio is passionate about culture in Africa, and I know that you are too. And one of our favorite figures, his and mine, is brother Ibrahim Traore. I mean, he's shaking things up in a big way. And, you know, you talk about young folk. Well, he's one of them, you know, and I would venture to say that there are some other Ibrahim Traores in other countries
in the making.
You know, that need to be able to step into the shoes of those who have accepted the donations that come from the European powers. In exchange for the freedom and liberation of their people. So we're looking for that new leadership. You know, I watched another video, or I think it was the video that Tony Browder did with you, and he started the show talking about the situation in Sudan. And, you know, we're oblivious to it because we don't see it on CNBC and MSNBC and CBS and all the others. But there are things that are happening on this planet, and it's really kind of ironic because it seems that they're always happening in places where there are tremendous resources. You know, it's like they fabricate this instability, they create civil strife, and it's a smoke screen for them coming in and doing their raping and pillaging. So while you're looking at that, they just moving stuff out and making stuff and then sending it back to us, and then we pay an exorbitant price for something that came from our ground. You know, so that definitely has changed.
It's all it's been.
Yeah. So
a big exploitation. That's all it's been, is a big exploitation across the planet. That's all he's been doing since he's been here.
Yeah. Well, 2026, based on what our astrological brothers and sisters are sharing with us, you know, the Lloyd Strayhorns and the Myra Mosses and the others, it's going to be a different kind of year. And as I sit here watching the price of silver explode, and I see XRP about to take off and become this currency that moves money around the planet and gets revalued as a result of that. There's tremendous opportunity for those who are paying attention right now. So I want to come back to you, Brother M'bwebe, and get an update from you on the world of cryptocurrency and ways that folks can plug in. Remind the viewers how they can plug into your financial therapy sessions.
Yes, you can go to cryptowokemovement.com, or you can go to M'bwebe Ishangi.com. But yeah, I pretty much have a plethora of information and courses and even manuals, hack manuals that are available to give you the I would say the lowest, or I won't say not lowest in regards to level, but the easiest way to introduce ourselves. Because again, we haven't been properly introduced to finances. We only know it as a way to make ends, an end to a mean, right? Or means to an end, rather. We get paid and we pay for something. We haven't understood the importance of learning how to employ money. That concept is probably foreign to a lot of us, is that we don't, I can make my money work for me. I've been working for money. So the idea of understanding how you can get money work for you, and you pretty much, once you set it up, just let it build and grow, is something that we should all be introduced to. But at the same time, I know that there's a level of care that needs to come with that, because we are scarred from our relations with finances. A lot of us are not very good with finances because, again, we were never taught. So I try to take you through a step-by-step phase of, one is forgiving yourself, because, we blame ourselves for what we don't know, but purposely, systemically, it was designed to be so. So once you understand that, you can remove the guilt and just know that you were part of a system that was successful to this point. So now, if you go to, again, cryptowokemovement.com, I'd be happy to break that psychosis and get you on an even playing field with all the other ones.
All right. Brother Antonio, anything that you would like to share for the good of the cause?
It's just, again, we first have to recognize that there's an issue for any type of healing can take place again. And hopefully at that point, you'd be receptive to looking at a new way of doing things. We can, it's just difficult for me to, and let's just let you know how deep the psychosis go, that we is willing to accept a way of life, a way of doing things from a history that says that a lot of good didn't come out of it, especially when it related to Black people on this planet. So we should be very repulsive or very standoffish, or really of taking any kind of system that is presented from a group that has a bad history, and it just bewilders me and makes me feel just real crazy about of how we are still, as a people, willing to accept or not even be open to a new way of doing something, based on the history that we went through, so that just lets you know that the psychosis that we have to overcome and that we are doing, that we have to deal with, because you can see what's going around right now, and most of the stuff is not good for you. The food, the water, the air, the environment, the ecosystem, the healthcare system, all this stuff is in a muck. So it just behooves me that to think that why we would think that anything good would come out of that, and why we're not looking at another way of doing it. And our ancestors have laid the roadmap out for us on what we are, who we are, what we should be, and how to live with the animal and plant kingdom, but we won't look that way.
All right. I am correcting what I put up on the screen. Thank you for that, brother. It's cryptowokemovement.com. So if you want to get some inspiration, some information, some education, you can go to cryptowokemovement.com and you can get that that therapy that Brother M'bwebe is dispensing. So with that, I want to thank you for joining us today, brother, and reiterate the fact that I'm looking forward to reading that novel, Trust and Believe.
Like I'm looking forward to you reading it too. I want to definitely hear your thoughts, and anyone else out there that in advance, thanks for, even taking the time to listen to us today and hear me rant and rave about what I'm speaking about. I'm so passionate about.
Mm.
And if you do support me in any kind of way, even if it's just listening, but if you purchase any of my products, read my books, I am indebted. And I hope that you find this work a creative arsenal added to your belt.
All right.
Of tools. So I appreciate your time.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. And for those of you who have been watching us for the past hour and 11 minutes, we appreciate you. Don't forget, like, comment, subscribe, and share this information. Don't be stingy with it. This brother was dropping gems today. If nothing else, you should be looking into some whole life insurance. You can make a come up with what you got on this show today. So again, thank you for joining us. And as always, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, and make today your absolute best day. Peace, y'all.
Peace.